When we talk about anime-defining genres, we mostly point to the big three that really have become the most prevalent compared to any other genre out there. Those being slice of life, shonen, and probably the most recognizable, isekai. No doubt if you've been around on the anime side of YouTube, you've at least heard one of these three getting thrown around when talking about new seasonal animes coming up, or a review of a show that went under the radar. However, I feel like one we often forget about is Harem. I don't think many people realized how much of a stake harem animes had over the entirety of anime as a whole. You can see it shine through some of the same genre mentioned previously, since it can act more as a subgenre. Shows like That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime encapsulate this perfectly, an isekai anime that has harem elements at the same time. But we can get back to more recent harems later, as it would probably be best to talk about the brief history of harems and what they are today. With what many consider to be the first harem anime starting all the way back in 1989, it's easy to say that the genre has been around for quite a while. Ranma was the big bang to what many people consider the first of the harem genre. A simple, and I use that word lightly because it's not, story about Ranma, who is a man among men, but also happens to be a girl if he's hit by cold water. A slight problem since he's to be engaged and might be more of a girl than his fiancé. Confusing? Yes. Interesting? Also yes. More importantly, groundbreaking? Definitely. What we would consider tropes in harem anime today were built off the work Ranma put in. A lot of the story elements and character development you see in Ranma are still being used in harems and even non-harem animes today. A big staple being the sweet, sweet tsundere. Yeah, this was a show that really defined what makes a tsundere, and its idea it's set still stands practically unchanged 30 years later. Here's a good video if you want to know more about the tsundere history. Moving past that, the harem genre stayed pretty prevalent throughout those 30 years, and it wasn't really till 2016 where it started to fall off. With the isekai rising of 2012, harem anime began to fall off, not drastically at first, but it began to merge with the other genres. It really just started to act more as a subgenre. We started losing that classic setup of a boy at school surrounded by hordes of girls that loved him, the perfect escape fantasy for any middle school boy hoping high school will be this awesome. Spoilers, it's not. Maybe it was for the better, but maybe not, since when this genre is the main focus, despite some of the crazy things happening, it at least feels like the characters' actions and reactions are believable. It would have to be, since the story relies on well thought out characters. However, this is only when the genre acts on its own. The harem trope is practically the reason why isekai animes are so disliked now, since both the harem and isekai genres act more as escapes for the audiences watching. When you put them together, it feels too much like a fantasy. That's not to say that they can't go together, as shows like Cautious Hero and Konosuba really turn that trope on its head. However, more often than not, the harem part is thrown in and the audience is just kind of forced to accept it. SAO, for example, you expect me to believe that this man right here, who can hack into the game's mainframe, write code that stops an AI from being deleted, and then turn that said AI into an object where she can come back later because of said object, but can't tell that the person who literally says they like him, likes him, it just doesn't feel earned. So it just feels like it was tacked on in a way to make the character seem cooler. And that was it. The genre was no longer a fun story of bittersweet love like in Nisekoi, but just simply a tool for authors to show how awesome their characters are. That is until 2019, when two shows by the name Quintessential Quintuplets and We Never Learn came out. At the time, I wasn't too versed in the whole harem genre, so even though I've seen the classics like Nisekoi, Kiss Him Not Me, Monster Musume, and others, I didn't know what to expect, since really all that I've seen from harems at the time were stuff I would see in isekai animes I watched. But who knew that these shows, with literally the exact same concept, in the exact same genre, in the exact same setting, could be so unique to themselves and so well written. I remember watching Quintessential Quintuplets first, and then watching We Never Learn, and being like,
Bonnie, how do you keep getting back in?
I'm a drunk. I don't know nothing about how I do anything. Whoa!
since it was about the main character tutoring the girls who will grow to like and compete for him. Really staying true to the roots of the genre, while still not being scared to change it up a little and show how the genre has, as a whole, matured and understands what made it great in the first place. I'd like to say that it was at this point when the resurgence of the classic harem genre came back. As We Never Learn finished its second season, Quintessential Quintuplets is getting a second one later this year, and 5 other new harem animes have already been announced to come out so far in 2020. But just because there are more harems coming out, doesn't mean they're all going to be as good. For example, in 2014, when Nisekoi came out, 10 other harems also came out, but maybe only 1 or 2 of them just barely got close to the same ratings Nisekoi has. I'm not too worried though, as in 2019 alone, the harem animes that came out, aside from Teacher's Young Bride, performed pretty well and were actually watched by an audience. If there are more shows written and directed like We Never Learn and Quintessential Quintuplets that hold true to the roots of the genre while still not being scared to change things up, or even shows like Konosuba and Re:Zero that use it to strengthen the bond between characters and not as some gag, we may end up finding ourselves in somewhat of a renaissance of the harem genre. In the end, whether that happens or not, it would be hard to deny the great impact this genre has had on all of anime as a whole. Alright, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. It was a little bit different from what I've been doing. I like doing this, so expect more. Anyways, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.